hetto mi yalanma min waɗi mi yiddema ko an tan hollimi hollimi ko jiɗinmi oduna waɗi mi yiddema cold light I live to love and adore you.
On July 4th, pre-dawn, I woke up weeping instead of sleeping. Impressed upon my heart was the urgent need to write this message. We returned last night from our missions trip to the Middle East. I've never had anything on my mind on the 4th except what beach volleyball tournament I was going to play in or where my family would watch fireworks. Today, however, is different. God has shaved the calluses of my heart, and it's raw and bleeding for a people I previously had no connection with. The intrigue and adventure of the trip compelled me, but God took me on a journey of revelation instead. The countries we visited and God's logical order we visited them in is clear to me now. Each of them was distinct with different peoples, problems, and impossible obstacles to the solutions. I shared with Todd and several others on the mission team that I was wrecked by a vision at 5:45 a.m., my first morning in Istanbul. It's the first vision I've ever experienced. It was shocking and all-consuming, unlike any dream or bright idea that I couldn't shake. I was fully awake and adrenaline coursed through my veins. We'd walked the old city squares close to midnight the prior evening and saw devout Muslim families sharing a meal and children playing on the lawns of sprawling mosque plazas after the Ramadan daily fast. A spirit of festive fear radiated as they had once again made atonement by fasting. The darkness was heavy. The vision revealed was that of walking through a tar of blackness with just the slightest of light. Movement and visibility were restricted and fear surrounded me, but it was completely abated by God's warmth and love. Fear was every direction except in the luminosity. For some reason, I felt compelled to check the time. It was 5:45 a.m. It came to me on my return home that to look for the verses that might apply to the time of the vision. I opened the Bible and went directly to Matthew 5:45. For some context, 44 says, "But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you." 45 says, "That you may be sons of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous." You might be thinking like I was, what a coincidence that the verse is talking about God shedding his light, right? I'm typically quite a skeptic of experiences like this, but it's hard to explain away, especially because I tried again this morning, July 5th. I looked for other verses, or 545 verses specifically, in every book of the Bible and found none. His second step for us was in Jordan. This stop was to show us his way, his church. The small church we visited in Jordan, which was just a few miles from the Syrian border, close enough to hear the bombs, redefined an Acts-based church for me. They're providing God's love, assistance, sanctuary in its purest form, unconditionally. Only weeks ago, they offered small bags of food to local Muslims breaking their daily dawn to dusk Ramadan fast. They were hated and stoned for doing this, but God worked a miracle softening the hearts of the local leaders in this town, or tribal town, and the aggressors came to this church and apologized, saying, "You gave us food and we gave you stones." Our third stop was in Lesbos, Greece. We visited the two main refugee camps currently being used, Karatepe and Moriah. Karatepe was the nicest, but only available for women and families. Both are fenced, but Moriah was a literal high-security prison previously. It's no surprise that the prison environment is not working and has had riots and fires and unspeakable violence and rebellion. This camp solution is based on man's fear of an unknown people and our instincts to protect what we have, avoiding change at all costs. It's brought forth a spirit of containment under the ruse of safety, further violating these refugees and stripping them of their dignity. The need for safety protocols are mandatory, but an equal portion of grace has been overlooked, equating failure. You've heard rumors of sanctuary in Jordan, Turkey, and Greece, but you've never been there and have no idea how to get there. A friend of a friend knows a smuggler who's charging $1,500 per family member. There's a rampant banging on the door. You open, and extremists push their way in, yelling and forcing your family from your home as it's being taken over by ISIS. You take what you can carry and count your blessings, as other neighbors have lost so much more than their home and belongings. This is just the beginning of one refugee's story I heard. While visiting the small church I shared about, the vision of a community center was shared by its pastor. He eagerly showed us a multi-level facility on a hill that might house a future endeavor. God clearly fueled his excitement and vigor, and not surprisingly, it had a mountain view. The purposes of the community center were still evolving and included occupational training activities for men and women and care for the children. It included counseling and office space. It included a large kitchen with a vision of women coming together to share and minister to one another. Many of these women have either been separated or have lost their husbands and children. It was immediately and fervently placed upon my heart while still in the building that the Mountain View family could easily lease this property and develop a relationship with God's church a world away. We could help this community unconditionally, which would inevitably start the process of breaking down the barriers of fear for us and them to show who Jesus Christ is. It costs just $1,000 per month on a 2-year lease. If just 100 people gave up 2 coffees per month, we can do that. If 200 people gave up 2 coffees per month, we can help them hire a staff member for the center. While this is just a small step towards an impossibly God-sized solution, the harvest would be tremendous for both churches. God's kingdom. The community center's progress and success could be easily monitored and shared with our family going forward by video, as we have feet on the ground accountability through an existing ministry. I can't think of a better way to convey home for the wanderer and rest for the weary.